Welcome to Marathon Champions, the podcast where running legends Benji Durden, Bill Rogers, and Ron Tabb share their timeless wisdom on marathon training and inspire listeners with their wealth of experience. These champions continue to impact the running world today.
So today we're going to talk with Mike Caldwell. He's a sort of a renaissance man of running. He's been a runner, a coach, worked in the shoe industry, had a magazine. I mean, he's a man of many hats.
And thanks. It's good to be here with you guys.
Mike, welcome to the show.
I heard an interesting thing talking about the economy and how post World War II, Japan was recovering, Europe was recovering. And so we did have industry because the rest of the world didn't. And then they started catching up and took, because they were able to work cheaper because they needed those jobs. The economy sort of slowly pulled away from our industry to these other industries. And that's why we really don't have a lot of the industry we need. Germany and Japan recovered quicker than most of the rest because, we were as the winners were helping them get themselves back on their feet. And so anyway, that's why our economy now is hurting, because the rest of the world recovered and got better. Anyway,
the war helped build our economy, right? The war. World War II
it made us into an industrial giant because that's what we had to do to fight.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think also you're always going to look for cheaper labor. You can even look at ASICs though. Okay, when Onitsuka, who I had the pleasure of, meeting and having dinner with a few times when I was at AC. When he started his company, he basically was starting it because his vision was if everybody played sports, they wouldn't have a war. Now, I mean, very idealistic, and he goes, if everybody was just playing sports, we wouldn't have to fight, right?
Right.
And his first shoe was a basketball shoe because, he didn't know, but then he got into the running. But even with the Japanese, who became very meticulous on their quality, their shoes were excellent, right?
Right.
Yes. But even then, when I was at ASICS, they started moving production to Taiwan and to Korea, and later to China because it just got too expensive as far as making everything in Japan. And they, at that time, they had eternal employment, basically, for their employees. I think it's changed some now. But so they had those factories there, and all of a sudden we were just making very high-end shoes in some of the Japanese factories, and pretty much making promo shoes for athletes and stuff there, while the majority of the retail shoes were being made in offshore.
Yeah.
And I think that's similar with Nike,
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, that's just the nature of business. You always want to keep your costs at minimum.
Yeah.
I remember being in Japan and Nike people coming over to start up the Nike business, and then of course New Balance too.
Yeah.
Have their runners like not Dick Beardsley, but a friend of mine from the Boston area just got inducted into the Lowell Community College Hall of Fame and everything. And I'm trying to think of his name. Worked for Nike for many years, and but he was there on behalf of New Balance. So we athletes played a huge role, I think, in this. Except we weren't being paid anything. But maybe
we got, some of us got a little bit of money, but we didn't get it initially. But
per diem.
I mean, I know you got better than I did, but I got some money from Nike. I mean, it wasn't just per diem.
Bill, that race that we were at in China, that's where I signed my contract with Nike, and Phil Knight was there. He brought my contract over and hand delivered it, but they were over there he was meeting with the Chinese to have their shoes developed over there.
Yeah, so mind-boggling. So did he bring that and give that to you after you won for your second time, or was it your first time you won Beijing?
No, it's an eighth. I only won Beijing once.
I thought you won twice.
Just once.
No, he ran it again, but that was the only time he won it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, he hand delivered my that's a pretty cool story that Phil Knight, hand delivered my contract to me in China. So, I guess I could say I flew over there specifically to give it to me, but he was really there on business.
It was just a secondary thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it was in the stadium after the race was over with.
It was just mind-boggling being at that race, because those were the days before it was the modern China that we were able to go there and I wanted to win that race so bad. And I still don't know what happened to me, but I don't think I finished. I think I dropped around 24 or something. But they treated us good. And I
They
thought,
did. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, Benji, we were over there together too, and
Yeah,
we had
I
a
think
great.
it was the next year that you and I were there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got really sick on the second trip. I don't know if it was food poisoning, but I got really sick over there on one of
Well,
the.
everybody we went to the Beijing or Peking duck place, and everybody
Yeah,
ate everything, and I was reluctant, and I was the one that didn't get sick.
yeah. The Peking
Well,
duck was good.
it
I
was
really
good,
liked
but everybody that went to that meal got sick except me, and
Yeah.
because I was very reluctant about what I would be
it.
willing to eat.
Now you
Yeah,
guys have traveled so much, but like the same thing when I was on business, and when I was with ASICS, my Japanese counterpart, Nishimoto, would tell me what I could eat and what I wouldn't eat. He goes, we can eat this. We're used to it. You can't eat this, and he was right. And sometimes we'd have other Americans and they would go ahead and eat it. And yeah, we wouldn't see them for a few days.
Yeah.
So
did anyone try the 1,000-year-old egg?
I never,
I remember those, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember being told how they were made, and it seemed like
they were fermented.
yeah, they were
Yeah,
fermented, but I didn't eat those either. I remember
no, I couldn't do that.
you got some bottles of Mao Tai,
Oh, that stuff was just nasty, and
which
a
is
bottle of
an
it
out, yeah,
broken.
yeah, and they broke in your luggage and destroyed your
Yes,
clothes.
oh, it was broken my luggage. It was brutal.
oh,
Well, Ron, I recall the year you won, you had indicated to me you might have an injury and that you were getting acupuncture. So
Yeah,
I was quite surprised after 15 miles in 85-degree heat, you're still pushing it along with Stahl, the Swede, and I think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
an East Runner. And it was a tough day in the office, but it started like at 3 in the afternoon in September. It's a
yeah.
different day today.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that I went there the second time and we didn't get fluid. It was like 85 degrees when we started in the afternoon. And we didn't get fluid, or I didn't get any fluid until like 25K. And I ended up walking through Tiananmen Square. I finished it, but it was a struggle. So
So
Mike,
hard to travel so far, but I think we were the first. We weren't the very first. Well, I think we were the first running boom. What don't you think so with Frank's
oh
gold
yeah,
thing, and then
definitely, yeah.
yeah,
everything?
Mike, you actually got to run down in Tallahassee, or was it Gainesville?
Gainesville.
Gainesville. So
I,
yeah,
I lived in both. I lived in both, but Gainesville first. Yeah.
and so you ran with these guys when the boom was beginning.
Yeah, we had a good group. Frank, Marty LaCory, Dick Berkeley, and a bunch of other guys, right? Byron Dice, Eurus
Yep.
Luzin.
Yep.
Batchelor was there when we first got there, and I think Jack might been the godfather of it, right?
Yep.
I mean, and Jack was the first. I mean, not the first, but the first ones that I think most of us knew that was pursuing it way after his college years, right?
Yeah.
And Jack was like the Pied Piper in Gainesville. He would have this between 7 and 9 mile run at extremely slow pace every morning, and he'd make this loop. And wherever you lived, you could you just join in when they came by your apartment, and then you'd go ahead and make the total loop. But
And this is stuff that once a runner kind of
yeah,
wrote
yeah,
about.
yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, John, incorporated most of that into his book, and so yeah, that was interesting. The only thing, it's funny, John was great at writing that stuff up, and if you lived there, you understood the book even better. I mean, because you knew who he was talking about, even though they were fictional characters, they were based on real people, and but Frank was, Frank was Frank. You guys know Frank. Frank would do his morning run at 11:30. You'd see, and then he would show up at the track at 3:15. And sometimes, I mean, there were not all the time, but I mean, I remember days when Frank would he'd do his morning run, and I don't know if he took a shower or not, but he'd be sleeping on the couch in the track by the track. There was an office there, and he'd be sleeping on the couch, and then when everybody show up for the afternoon run, he'd just jump up and do that too. So,
Well, Mike, I heard once from Kenny Moore. He said he feels, Frank, great athlete for a variety of reasons, and you're pointing some of them out. The birthplace of the distance running boom was in Florida, and the people who wanted to continue, great talents like Marty LaCory and Berkeley. But that he said that Shorter had a great ability to fall asleep like that. Like he get on an airplane, he could sleep. I could never sleep on an airplane.
Yeah.
So in other words, he could sleep, and he had this ability, and some people have and some don't. But that sleep counts a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Frank, as you know, I mean, everybody, each one of you guys had your talents. Everybody, one thing I used to think about Frank is he was just so light on his feet, running. I mean, sometimes on a Sunday, we'd all run. Barry Brown liked to run it. I forgot. We ran early on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And the funny thing there was Barry thought it was a 20-mile run. It was probably about 18 and a half because Barry just added these loops up that never were the right. And Berkeley would always go, that's not 20 miles. And they'd have an argument. It'd be funny. But, an hour or two later, sometimes I'd be eating or somebody with my friends or other runners, we might be eating breakfast at a restaurant or something. And we look out and there was Frank going along. And Louise, who was his wife at the time, Louise would be on her bicycle, just struggling to pedal to keep up. And you look and he'd just be so slow going by. I mean, it's so smooth. And later we'd find out he was running 5:05 pace, for his 20-miler or 5-minute pace. We go, he didn't look like he was running that.
Well, Mike,
So-
isn't it true that, what John was talking about in his book, Once a Runner, the people who permanently quit and always wondered, should I have kept going? But Frank never questioned himself, and neither do we.
Yeah.
We all found running is so powerful. It's so powerful. And I think until you start running, you don't know it because most people don't know that. But
Yeah,
as coaches, you can send the message.
That was a different era, right? And I'm not, I mean, I don't think we're in a better era or a worse era, but now I think that if you look, because, I coach a group of elite runners now, and I mean, they're not at your level probably, but they're aspiring to be, right? But the thing is, we tell them, you're looking for, I would say if you look at NCAA listings, performance listings, and you look at, say, the 10K, it's much faster now depth-wise than it ever has been. But how many of those will pursue running after college? Very, very few, very few. And, with my group now, out of the 7 guys, 5 of them were D2 people, right?
Yeah.
They weren't D1.
So, Mike,
Yeah.
this brings me to a subject because I'm coaching young kids, and one of the topics that I come up with one of the issues that I have are coaches that are overcoaching their athletes, overtraining, doing too many miles at such a young age. And I think part of the problem you're seeing where these collegiate athletes, they don't continue on beyond college, is I think what happens is they're just burnt out. If you're running 70, 80 miles in high school, and in California, I even saw kids running 100-mile weeks, and then you go on to college, where do you go from there? I mean, you're gonna reach a point where you're just burnt out. The kids that I coach here, and I've got the top girl in Florida, her highest mileage week has been 34 miles, and
I agree with you.
because I'm looking what I try to do with these young athletes is I'm thinking long term, short term obviously, but I'm also thinking long term. That's when I coached Meb in San Diego. That was, my concern with him was because I was a private coach with him. I wasn't his high school coach, but my concern was overtraining him and seeing that, that making sure that he wasn't doing more miles than he needed to be doing. And the most mileage he ever put in 1 week in San Diego was 56 miles. That was the biggest week he had, and that was in a buildup for his senior year.
No, I think that's right. But I think to go back to what Bill was saying, I think that, what I tell the people that, you only got a few years to do this really well. I mean,
Right.
I think we're learning that you can go longer and longer if you can support yourself, right? I mean, there are a lot of women now that are approaching 40 or over 40 that are running their best ever, right? So I don't think that's a gender thing. I think guys could too, but mostly the guys fall on, I've got to make a living, right? And so, not that the women don't too, but I think that, we're seeing that people can go. I mean. Look at Galen. Galen ran 209 last week, right? And he's what, 39 now?
Yeah, he's 39.
Yeah. And so, it can be done if you have the desire. Galen makes enough money so he doesn't have to worry there. But I think that to your point, I always tell the guys, hey, if you just, follow your passion if you want to, I think we can say, everybody's been fairly successful and we didn't jump right out of college and get a job, right?
Right.
Well,
I had a job, but it was part-time.
yeah, but I'm just saying, a lot of people say, oh, you got to start making money, right?
Yeah.
But in my thing, especially after my wife passed away a few years ago, I just say, hey, we all just got to enjoy what we've got here, right? And if you're enjoying running, enjoy it as long as you can, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, because I've been fortunate, financially to have good jobs and everything else, but I go, hey, don't worry about the money as much. As long as you're being happy and you're surviving and you're not harming anybody, you're not stealing or something, enjoy it, And I'd like to see more. I mean, I think the U.S. would be better if we had more post-collegiate runners, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, the women, if you look at them, a lot of them do stop right after college, but some of them are making comebacks. The Kira D'Amatos, after they may have kids or whatever, and they say, "Hey, I still want to do this," and then and you can look at it both ways. Hey, if you just kept going, how good would have you been, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think many people really fully appreciate how good they could have been. I'm not sure how we were as good as we could be, I guess. But Ron and I have talked about this more than once. If we changed our training to be more like some of the training today, how much better would we have been? It's hard to know.
Since I do it now as coaching, I think you guys would have been better with today's training method. And there's not one specific thing. It's a combination, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know a lot of stuff, right? And I mean, we can go in, and that's probably the topic, right? Footwear. I mean, footwear is so much better now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were looking, and when I was doing product at ASICS, I was looking to make, I made a 3-ounce racing shoe for myself, right? I didn't make it, but I had my developer make it. It was good for 1 or 2 races, right? But we were looking for the thinnest thing we could get.
Yeah.
Now you're going, hey, I need cushioning, I need this, and the materials you can make them light now.
Yeah.
And be right.
Yeah. I mean, I in the last week, I finally decided that, okay, I'm going to do some research about what the shoes are worth. And I mean, they did a study here at CU back when the Nike was first developing the 4% and found that it was, improved efficiency about that much. But then what does that mean? I mean, everybody seems to think, well, 4% is how much faster you'd be. But I found a study where they said, and there are a lot of studies out there, but this one said basically it's around 2%. They took 50 elite men and compared carbon shoes to current carbon, well, not current, the carbon at the time, even the carbon shoes now are better. And they found 2% is about the range. And that, I mean, Ron and I both would have been in the 207s based on that. Billy would have also been in the 207.
And I think that's just from the racing point of view, but I think the
training part, nobody, I think, has really looked at that part. And
there are 2 schools of thoughts, Benji, right now. I mean, you have coaches that don't train in the super shoes because, just save them for the races. And, that sort of makes sense. But we found, and not, I mean, just anecdotally, I mean, it just happens. Our guys want to wear those shoes in their hard work, right?
Yeah.
But you find out they recover so much better.
Yeah. Well, I ran yesterday, I ran 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
In my carbon shoes, and my legs don't feel bad today.
And I think that you have to say it's not just, I mean, this would be a technicality, but it's not just the carbon. I mean, you could use different materials for those plates. I mean, we call them carbon, but there's all sorts of materials you could use. It's basically
I've got some Sauconys.
How you stack the foam.
Yeah, I've got some Sauconys that are nylon, and they don't feel too much different than the carbon. The carbon, it's just that's a.
It's like calling tissues Kleenex. It's
right. That's what I was going to say as well. It's just the generic name for these shoes.
But going back to what I was going to say, I think that, I mean, we were pretty, I mean, you guys were good, I mean, I was okay, but not good, that good. But the thing is, we were in our schedules. We were stuck, right? I mean, we would race one day and run the next, right?
I didn't.
And we saw no problem with it. Benji always, maybe not when we were coaching it, but now, our guys ran 25 miles yesterday. That was, and the last 5 miles marathon pace or better, but what today they're only going to run 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And in the past we'd have gone, oh, that's going to kill my volume for the week. But we don't care. We got the workout we wanted in.
Yeah.
We won't run hard again until Thursday, And so, they'll get some miles in, but we're not worried about that. And some coaches still do worry about the volume, but you learn so much, and you're going, what are you trying to get on recovery? I'm a physiologist by background. I go, hey, we're trying to get human growth hormone secreted, right? We're trying to get these things to recover. And what happens there? So, if we can get the HGH levels up by running 40 minutes. It doesn't get any higher if we run 70 minutes. So why run an extra 30 minutes? Let's just get what we did. But then if we get in the gym, we're going to get another spike of human growth hormone. So why don't we just run 30 minutes on Mondays and go to the gym for 45 minutes and do our circuit, And but we're recovered, and stuff. And there's a lot of things that's coming into play now that none of us knew anything about back then, right?
I didn't know all those things were going on, but that was my routine. I'd do a hard day and then I'd have an easy running day and I'd go to the gym.
Yeah.
And
So I think it's a lot of combination now. It's why, like I said, we're going to see a lot of sub 210 U.S. marathoners, right?
We already have.
Yeah, but
So-
does that make us competitive? I don't know, but there are going to be a lot of them.
Yeah.
So Benji, you said you would go to the gym.
Yeah.
How often did you go to the gym?
3 days a week.
Bill, how about you?
I never went to a gym. I I had dumbbells. I would do presses and curls and sit-ups. We're all definitely old school
Yeah.
exercise science. I think that's what Mike is talking about.
Yeah,
I was
Mike, how about-
fortunate enough to have a membership in an athletic club here in Atlanta when I was there, and they had Nautilus, and I just, I would do a 45-minute run and do my weights. That was my day.
Mike, how about you?
Back then,
Yeah, how often to the gym?
I was probably twice a week back then,
Okay.
But I think the thing is, Ron, there's what I call general strength and specific strength. And specific strength has mobility and flexibility involved now, which we didn't do a lot of back then. We just lifted, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was. I'll share something.
Yeah.
The only thing that I did was push-ups and set-ups. I never went to the gym.
Well, you
Ever.
you were little. You didn't need to do that.
So yeah, but would it have benefited me had I done that? Because
Ron,
my
I think it benefits you in different ways, but I think it lets you train better. Going back to that,
Yeah.
I think you could probably race just as well, but if you can train better, you'll race better.
Yeah.
I think Ron, Benji, Mike, it's so time consuming. I saw Cam Levins, the Canadian marathon record holder, doing his routine in the gym. Wow. So tedious and boring, moving your foot over this way and then this way and then this way. It was mind-boggling. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, Bill, I'm fortunate enough to be working on some stuff with Jimmy Ratcliffe at University of Oregon's a strength coach. And he's right? But if I had my guys do all the stuff that he can do, there's not enough hours in the day, right? And I said, man, we would be in there all day long. And his stuff's great, but and then if you look at what Clayton Young and Connor Mance are doing, at the Brigham Young part, they're very specific, and they're doing this, but I've come to the conclusion there's only so many hours you can train and be effective.
Yeah.
So like with my guys, and I won't give it, but it's 45 minutes. We have a 45-minute circuit, but it's all, like I said, there's some general strength, but there's some specific strength. Everything's involved on moving the body as you would in running,
Avoiding injuries is everything.
But it's like if we do, like people go, going to do box jumps. I go, box jumps. When are you going to jump up on a box during your race? If you're Steve Pacer, maybe. But anyway, but our guys do what we, their plyometrics are on a agility or speed ladder going every other rung, jumping, but going forward. So they got a forward propulsion, right? And then, when we do resistance bands with our ankles, walking, but we're holding med balls above their heads. So it's developing their core at the same time. So you're not that's, if you go to some gyms, that would be two different exercises. Take you 15 minutes. We can do it all in 5 minutes there. So I think that's what we've been learning is how do you do, you get general strength and you get specific strength that's, propelling you forward, right? Or what's your force platform going, as your foot comes down, the faster you can get that foot up, the faster you're going to be, so just a lot of little things that we've learned over years. But like I said, so going back to the original thing, if you guys had all that, would you have been faster? I would bet you would. I might lose the bet, but I bet you guys would have run faster.
Maybe avoided injuries better.
Yeah. Well, I think that's.
I did a lot, probably more than the Ron and Bill, and I hardly ever had injuries. I never, until I had my plantar fascia tear in '83, I had no injuries that really required even that much time off, maybe a week.
So Benji, when we were working together, you didn't get hurt much. That was good. You always had something wrong. I mean, there was always some little niggle that you were working with, but it wasn't enough to debilitate your training.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing for me was I would get sick. I mean, I would, if I pushed too much, I would get sick. I'd get a cold or I'd get the flu. I mean, the 81, no, 82, I missed Boston. I was supposed to go to Boston, but I got sick before. I'd had really good early racing, and then just before, like 2 weeks before, I had a really bad case of the flu and ended up not running that race.
Well, it was a good one to miss, Benji.
Oh yeah. Historically you look at it, but because I was a heat runner, I might have been part of the race. I might have been.
Yeah, you would have been in the hunt. But
one thing with all three of you guys, though, and I don't know if it was monetarily motivated because it's hard to, but you guys race so much more than anybody races now.
Right? Well, part of it definitely was monetary, but a lot of my racing was there in Atlanta, and I had, Atlanta Track Club races were free if you're a track club member. And that was part of my training. I'd go and, I wouldn't ease back. I'd just go run a 10K in like 31 minutes, and that would be training pace or, racing pace as a training run. I mean, I didn't get any money to do that in Atlanta, but I get money to go, like over to Alabama or South Carolina or Florida. And it would be the same thing. I hardly ever ran as seriously as I would if I, went like to a major marathon.
We were such a unique experience with the amateurism professional quest.
Yeah.
We're all trying to be professionals. And what does that mean? Well, that means you can be paid officially and still try to compete on behalf of your country, that sort of thing. And I wonder, Mike, as a coach, do your athletes understand those days?
No, not at all. One thing that really, at first it disappointed me, but now I just know that's life, right? But you can listen to not just all the runners right now. They don't know the history.
No. Yeah, no.
I mean, the crazy thing is they don't know 2 Olympics ago.
I always did. I knew who Billy Mills was. I know who Abibe Bakila was. I watched the Olympic Games when I was in high school in Tokyo.
Did you know who the Olympic team was, like in 56 for Americans?
56?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, no. We're going
back.
I mean,
but I didn't know him either. I got to know him later. But when I first started off, I knew 68.
Yeah.
And that was it. I didn't know before 68. And I did.
The question, I think it's a good question, but and that might be true in a lot of things, and I'm not just downplaying our sport, but the young people, I don't think there's a real good history right now. I mean, we have the history, but is it, I don't know if people are aware, right?
Yeah.
And we live in an instantaneous world now. I mean, we'll do Instagram sometimes with one of our workouts or something, And when you look at it, if we do 60 seconds, people may watch it for 38 seconds, the thing tells, right? And they get bored after 38 seconds.
But we talk about the history here, but I have to admit I'm guilty of not knowing, back then my history better of running. In 81, when I ran Paris, I met Michael Jazet, and I had no idea who I was, who I was meeting and talking to. And I ran
people at that level, I knew. It was Americans that were, the ones I didn't know. Yeah.
I met Glenn Cunningham at a race in Houston. I had no idea who Glenn Cunningham was at the time. I mean, that's sad. But
that is sad.
You got to think back. What the only way we could know it though is to read it somewhere, almost, right?
Yeah. We had to have a track and field news.
We didn't have social media or instantaneous. Yeah. And sometimes, I remember I would wait for track and field news, right? And you would find out what happened 8 weeks ago.
Yeah. And then when running times came along, they had, less severe, less elite performances, and you could see who the guys, as we're developing, we could see who we knew in other parts of the country, because track and field news wouldn't have covered that. But still, we hardly ever knew what was going on.
Yeah. Quick anecdote. If you guys remember Kenny Meisner? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Kenny ran with us, and with the group I had, and in Tallahassee, and he lived right next door to me. And his window from his bedroom looked out on our front porch. And so one day the mailman comes right and he delivers track and field news. And we were excited. I'm sitting on the porch starting to flip through it. And Kenny goes, "Is track and field news any good this month?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Is my name in it?" That's what made it, if it's going to be good or not, if his name was in it.